created by Cable for Canadians.
Hi, welcome to Beyond Politics. I'm Catherine Clark. I'm standing here just outside of Kingston on the property of Peter Milliken, who served this riding for over 23 years. Mr. Milliken was also the longest-serving speaker in Canadian history, and he joins me today to talk about his experiences in the House of Commons, his plans for the future, and his passion for gardening.
And we'll keep pulling.
Do you get a lot of time
the trouble with the grass.
Yeah, I know, and they're endless, honestly.
No, I don't. I mean, look at the mess in there. You can see that I haven't done any out here. I planted a few gladioluses a few weeks ago that I had forgotten about.
Do you enjoy doing it?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And I did those vegetables.
Yeah, that's an impressive garden you've got. And then do you eat it? Do you have, because if you're away so much...
Well, that's the plan. You see, I haven't grown vegetables in years now. So I decided this year to plant them again. It's the first time in at least a decade that I've done it. And I used to freeze them all.
Yeah.
But the peas are up. And the beans. And then I planted carrots and parsnips and beets. I can't remember what all else, but...
You'll know in a couple weeks.
Yes. Yeah, they've mostly started, which is a good sign.
And you must have a problem with deer.
I do.
That's a big sign.
Serious problem. And, there's some tomatoes starting. Yeah, the last year I grew tomatoes. I had them out here and quite a big patch of them and almost nothing else.
Yeah.
And I got no ripe tomatoes. They were always green. I couldn't figure this out. Went on and on and on. Finally, one day I looked out. It was after the last frost of the season, or first frost of the season, and so the plants had lost their leaves. And there were 3 deer standing here eating tomatoes.
Oh my gosh! So they just eaten them all?
They ate everything. They did. Every time they got big, they ate them. And
well, they must have been nice, lean deer. Nice and healthy. Look at all of your basil, too.
Basil, yeah.
Do you make your own? Do you cook a lot?
No, but my friends of mine make pesto out of it and give me frozen cubes of pesto, so
brilliant.
I have that. There's lots of weeds here, and there were some daffodils there, but they're finished for the season, and some currants. I've not had any of those, but it looks optimistic for this year.
Are you going to spend more time doing things like this now?
I hope so.
Is that your plan?
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, now you're going to have to start to cook then.
Yes, imagine.
Make your own pesto and such.
But that's not so bad.
No, I guess not, if you have the time to do it.
And if the others are keen to make it, then I can...
keep giving it to them.
Give them the plants and get the frozen cubes. It works very well.
How long have you been here?
Since 85.
Oh, so you've had this house since then.
Yep.
And did you have a plan for it? Was it meant to be a permanent home for you, or was it meant to be a retreat? Or?
No, it was intended to be my house to live in. I lived down the road for about 10 years before that in another house. But I sold that, and now Sarah Harmer owns it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
She's almost my next-door neighbor.
Isn't that great? She's such a wonderful musician.
Absolutely.
And where did you grow up?
In Kingston, mostly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So right in the town of Kingston.
Yes. Yeah, this was the township when I moved out here, but it's become part of the city. The township was amalgamated in, so.
It must have been lovely to have somewhere like this to come to after a week, a long week in the house.
Well, yes, yeah, from Ottawa, yeah, it was. But the trouble is you didn't get to spend much time here because you're always going to constituency events, so I've missed being here, but that's one of the nice things about retirement. I get to be here a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You were the eldest of 7 children.
Yes.
Which interested me because I think that would naturally bring with it a lot of responsibility and certainly expectations. Were you a serious child?
Oh, heavens, yes.
Were you?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes. You'll have to ask my sisters.
What was the breakdown in your family?
5 girls and 2 boys.
Oh, boy. That's a lot.
Yeah.
At least you always knew what you were supposed to do.
Oh, absolutely. If I didn't, I got told.
Are your sisters still around here then?
3 of them are, yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So they take good care of you?
Well, I see them from time to time.
Yeah.
Yes. It's entertaining.
So what's been the biggest adjustment being back here now?
Well, I don't know that I've adjusted yet.
It's not been long, has it?
No, and it's not. There hasn't been much of an adjustment because it's been quite busy.
Yeah. And your phone's still ringing.
Oh, yeah, and there are lots of events in Ottawa that I was invited to or am invited to, but was before in many cases. So, I'm going there and doing things like that, and then going to the cottage when I can, too. So
does it
there's a lot of
feel
running
different?
around. Yeah, it's different in the sense that you don't have to be at as many things. You go for 1 or 2 items instead of a full day that's packed with things. So that's better.
Do you also feel a sense of relief that you're not necessarily having to worry about what you say or how you approach things?
Yeah, I don't know that I worried about it a lot. I just knew I was supposed to stay quiet, so I did. No problem.
So now you might get louder?
I suppose. I get invited to events where they want me to speak, so I do. I don't know how loudly.
When we came in here today, you have a lovely long driveway.
Yeah.
And you had your garbage can at the end of it.
Yeah.
Can you take out your own garbage?
Heavens, yes.
And it's not even on wheels.
Well, I put it in the back of the car. I drove out.
Oh,
I drove it out.
Okay. Oh, that's smart.
Oh, yeah, I put it in the back of the car and drove it out.
Oh, that's smart. That's really great.
No, it wasn't heavy, but it's just bulky, and you can't do it. It was 2 trips, and it was raining, so I said, I'm not going to do that.
What was it like the first morning that you woke up here and you realized that you didn't have to do anything that day, that you didn't want to do?
Oh, I've had that happen before, but it's not particularly new. But no, I always enjoy waking up here. It's great.
Yeah.
Whether it's that kind of day or whatever day when you get to spend most of the time here instead of going somewhere else is great. But there's lots to do.
I imagine, especially the weeds.
Well, there's that, plus trying to get through all the piles of paper and open the boxes of things that came from Ottawa. I haven't got that done yet. So.
What are you going to do with all of that stuff?
I don't know yet. I have to figure out where I'm going to put a lot of it because there isn't room, obviously, in the house to do it. So.
Right.
But we'll have fun. It's partly looking at the thing, deciding where to put it. I have a little cabin over there.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that there's a fire, what might have been a fire pit there. Is that where you're
I've been burning
some of
the boxes?
The better papers?
No, the boxes and the newsprint they used to wrap all the stuff.
Oh, okay.
I had a fire this morning, got rid of another box because I had to go through the paper to find the top of the teapot.
Oh.
When I opened them, I didn't find the top, so I thought I'd have to go through this box again. I don't want to torch it until I do.
Yeah.
So, sure enough, I found it,
it,
and I put the rest of the box on the fire and got rid of it.
That's not a bunch of Hansard or anything?
No, it was blank newsprint. They used to wrap all this stuff up, and it's gone up in smoke.
Was politics a career that you put a lot of thought into? Is that what you thought you were going to do when you were older?
Well, I thought at some point I'd probably do it, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
How did your parents react? Because your dad was a physician.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, certainly they knew of my interest in politics way back when we went to Ben Benson's nomination meeting. It was my idea to go, and they went with me, so they certainly knew of my interest, that's for sure.
Why Ben Benson?
He was to be the Liberal candidate here in Kingston in 1962. So they were having a nomination meeting. I thought it'd be fun to go.
What appealed to you about him particularly? Because there would have been other nomination meetings, but you chose to go to the Liberal one. Was it something that was was it a party that spoke to you? Was it a message of the personal connection with Ben Benson?
Well, I didn't know him at all when I went. I met him at the meeting, but no, it was just I thought the party I'd be most comfortable in, and that was that. And then lots of my grandparents were Liberals and so on. So.
Yeah.
Not all of them. But.
And then you went into law.
Mm-hmm.
And you studied here, and you were in Oxford for a while. You did both.
I didn't do law here. I did politics at Queen's.
Yeah.
And then law at Oxford, and then law at Dalhousie.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you went back to Oxford, did you not? Did you go back for a master's?
No, and at Oxford your BA turns into a master's with the effluxion of time.
Well, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So when you had this great career in law too, I mean, you worked with an excellent firm here, and you had a long and 15 years and more in law.
Yep.
Did you just get bored and decide to go into politics?
Oh no. It was a bit of a surprise, I think, that I got elected in '88 because the Flora had been there a long time, and I suspected she might get reelected. But I was keen to run, and the opportunity came up, and I ended up winning. It was as simple as that. If I hadn't won, I would have stayed with the firm.
Were you surprised on election night in '88?
Yes, I was. Well, almost. I was hoping that I would come a close second, so they'd have me the next time round, and I assumed that she would retire the next time round. And that's what I thought would be the situation. But going door to door, I realized that I was getting a lot more votes than I thought I was going to, just because people were quite annoyed with her or ready for a change, whichever it was. And you get this at the door on a regular basis. And it quite surprised me, because I'd done door-to-door, of course, in a number of elections before that, and was surprised at the enthusiasm. People say, well, don't waste your time here, Mr. Milliken. We're going to vote for you. Just get to the next place.
Wow, isn't
that happened repeatedly. It was quite a surprise to me, and people that I didn't know were saying this. So.
Yeah. So you've said before that you liked going door to door, that was one aspect of being a politician that you enjoyed.
Yes.
Tell me then what it was like for you this past election, when you'd made the decision not to run, and all of the things that came so naturally to you weren't doing anymore.
Well, I did some door to door with the candidate here, and enjoyed it. It was fun. And I think he liked going with me, because we'd be on the same street, and he'd say I was there, and people say, oh, really? And come out and wave and say hi and happy retirement and all that sort of thing. So it was a very friendly, pleasant experience doing it.
Right.
As usual.
Yeah, I mean, but you say as usual, but that's not everyone's political experience. You've been lucky that you are a well-liked MP, and you've worked hard. But you've had a very unusual role as MP in the past for the last 10 years, 11 years of your service. You were Speaker. So how did you balance that, being Speaker and being a representative of your constituents?
Well, you're still doing the job, just you're not doing it so much in public. But you're still doing all the work for the electors that need help with problems with government and so on. So it's not that different. It's just that you're not making speeches in the House on subjects that they might want to hear you speak about.
Did you ever get any pushback from constituents about it?
Occasionally, yes. But, you say as Speaker you have access to all these people anyway, and you use it. So.
What do you miss the most about being Speaker?
Oh, the staff.
Yeah.
All the things you got done for you, and now you have to do it yourself.
And what about most interesting memories of being a Speaker? Are there ones that really stand out? Because you did a lot of international travel, and you also had, as you say, really unparalleled access to all MPs of all stripes and all levels within the House of Commons. Are there a few memories that really stand out for you?
Well, I'm not good at thinking of the things that are most significant. Maybe at one time, certainly meeting presidents and the Queen and so on. Those are always interesting experiences and really fun, because you get to have a chat, however brief, and quite pleasant. And then you get, to visit other countries and meet other speakers, and sometimes other monarchs or presidents in the country when you're visiting. That can be very interesting too. Quite interesting, really fun. So, I don't know. Things like that are things that probably stand out more than most. But certainly the work in the House was always entertaining, and you had a lot of interaction with members there. So
when you say entertaining, what do you mean?
Well, it's they're having their disagreements and so on, so you get to watch all this as a sort of spectator in many ways, and it can be quite fun.
Yeah. What was fun about it? Because a lot of people say that the House seemed to be loud and boisterous and not necessarily in control, like people, the hecklers, and there are other people who now say that the current House is deathly boring.
Well, I don't know, but the House has always been a place where there's been a lot of heckling in my view, so yes, you may find some of it disagreeable and sometimes it's excessive, but I don't think that's anything new. I think it's been the case in Canada for over 100 years. So if they're being more subdued now, that's fine.
Are people making an unnecessarily big deal about it?
I don't find it a huge deal. I think that it's important that there be a level of civility in it, but the noise level is another matter. And I'd say it was relatively civil. Yes, very partisan, but in a minority parliament particularly, you're going to have that. In a majority, there's not much advantage in slamming the other side as hard as they do in a minority situation where you're trying to get up in the polls every single day. Mm-hmm. In a majority situation, you don't worry about it until closer to the next election.
Why did you make the decision not to run?
I was just tired of doing all the work. I thought it was time for a change. The hours are quite demanding, so I thought it would be nice to make a change from that and do something else.
And yet you've barely been home.
Yeah. Well, it's
still all over the place.
Yeah.
Do you have a plan? Do you have an idea of what you're going to be at Queen's?
I'll be at Queen's. I'm doing a bit of teaching there.
In the School of Policy Studies. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then I think I'll probably be doing some work with my former law firm as well.
Right.
Not a lot of legal work, but working with the lawyers there and the clients, and seeing if I can help sort out problems, not legal issues so much, but sort out difficulties they have and ways they can deal with other institutions they have to deal with.
I think you also have exceptional training for any local kindergartens that may need some help.
Well, I used to do a lot of school visits.
Yeah. Excellent. What else are you planning to do in all of your leisure time?
Well, I haven't made other plans yet. Spend more time here, I hope, and look after the garden and go to concerts and things in Kingston. It should be fun.
When you watched the last election, which was an unusual one because so many people who had very little political experience got into Parliament, how did you feel, given that when you had gone into Parliament, you had such a knowledge, not just of the institution, but of the policies and procedures? How did you feel when you saw these people get in?
I think it's quite normal when there's a big changeover that might happen. I didn't find it unusual in that sense. I mean, yes, I was surprised sometimes at how these people were not particularly well known in their areas and got in, but that was more a surprise than their experience or knowledge of Parliament or its procedures.
And as someone with so much experience on the political front, do you have advice for them?
Well, get busy and read the rule books. They've got the summer to do it, or we'll have very soon, because I expect the House will adjourn shortly. And I think they'd want to learn something about that, so they know what they're going to be doing when they come back in the fall, because it'll be busy, and I think they'll find the work very interesting, and it helps if you know how to do it and how to do it effectively.
How much of that is part of being an MP, knowing the rules and knowing how to be, what the procedures are and how things should be done?
Well, I don't know how many actually spend a lot of time doing that, but I think it's very helpful if you know something of it, because then you can advance private members' business, private members' bills, move private members' motions, move concurrence committee reports, and do effective work in the committees, knowing the procedural tactics that can work in a committee to get things done there.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite helpful. It's just a matter of whether they bother picking it up, and some will, I'm sure. So.
And if they don't, you hope the new speaker puts them in their place.
Well, he'll put all of them in their place.
When you were growing up, what was your family life like? 7 kids is a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was the eldest, so, I used to tease the others and provoke them.
Provoke them.
As best I could.
So were you a meddlesome older brother, or were you just a ruthless?
You'd have to ask them that. I don't know. But certainly I can remember going home after I'd moved out when I was living in a house at Queens and driving them crazy.
I bet.
I'd go in and they'd all start screaming and yelling at me, and Mother would tell me to leave them alone and perhaps stay downstairs instead of upstairs, that sort of thing.
And what were your dinner time conversations like? Were you encouraged to talk about things? Were you encouraged to talk about the issues of the day, or was it more just get to the food? 7 kids, you want to make sure that there's enough food to eat before it all goes.
Oh, I think we had chats around the table, I guess, from time to time, what was going on. I don't specifically remember conversations, but certainly there would have been a fair bit of chatter around the table.
What did your mom do? Was she at home with you children? Yeah. And how did your mom and dad meet?
They were Queens.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So Queens has a really long history in your family.
Absolutely. Yeah, my grandparents on my mother's side were there, and my great-grandfather as well. So. Yeah.
How do you feel about going back and teaching there?
Oh, I like it. I've been doing it for years as a visiting lecturer now and again, and something, before I was speaker and since. Yeah. And I taught actually at the School of Business for 7 years, a business law course back in the 70s and into the early 80s. So it's not something
foreign to you?
No, not in the least.
Yeah.
It'll be kind of fun to do. And there's a lot of interesting fellows at the School of Policy Studies that I'll get to interact with a bit, and I think I'll enjoy that experience too.
Do you have any plans to take up extremely exciting pursuits like golf or anything like that?
I've never found golf particularly exciting.
Nor have I, really.
I used to
but
caddy
everyone
for my
seems
father
to
and
do
found
it.
Boring.
Did you? Did he pay you?
I think so, yeah.
Good.
I think so. That's like my recollections, but that hasn't happened for a very long time.
So no golf, maybe some whitewater canoeing?
Probably.
How did you get involved in that?
Oh, one of my friends in Ottawa got me, and he was a classmate here in Kingston at KCVI, but he moved to Ottawa and was a teacher there, and he did a lot of it, so...
And what's involved, other than what seems to me like a completely insane idea of taking a canoe and going down rapids?
Well, you just have to learn how to do it right, and so that you don't dump and don't fill up with water.
Have you done so?
Oh, heavens, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that a regular type of occurrence, or have you had a near-death experience?
I've dumped before, but not a whole lot. I mean, sometimes.
Are you the only one in the canoe?
No, usually there's 2.
Okay.
I took Michael Martin when he was the British speaker on a whitewater canoe trip quite a number of years ago.
Did he ever come back?
No. He didn't think he'd likely do it again, but I think he enjoyed it, but I think he found it a little demanding. We sank. We filled up with water and sank at the end of the rapid, but we didn't dump in it. We just sank at the end.
So really, I mean, you'd accomplished what you intended to do.
Yes, except it was too bad we got soaking wet.
Yeah. You're a singer.
Yes, I've been in choirs for a long time. Yeah.
Did you start as a young kid being in a choir?
I did.
Yeah. And you've apparently now been doing solo things as well.
Well, one anyway, at the Savoy Society in Ottawa a few months ago now, and I had a great time. It was fun.
What did you sing?
A piece from the Mikado, Gilbert and Sullivan. Now I won't think of the name of it, but it's...
Was it nerve-wracking?
No, not at all.
It wasn't?
I knew the piece quite well, and it was just a matter of going and singing. They had other performers, so I had to figure out where we were to step and so on the stage. That part was a little trying because I haven't done that before, but the rest of it was just fine.
And do you practice I mean, do you practice your singing? Do you walk around the house singing?
Not particularly. I listen to music.
I do. So
do you? Right.
Do you play music and then sing along? How do you do it?
I play it in the car when I'm driving somewhere. I listen to it there and sing along sometimes. Yeah.
That's great.
I suppose. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite piece of music?
Oh yeah, Zadok the Priest.
Really?
Yes, it's a marvelous piece by Handel.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you have an iPod?
Yes.
And you download all sorts of music?
I sure do.
Oh.
Well, all my CDs are on it.
Yes.
I download one or two other records, but basically it's my CDs, and I've got a huge stack of them. So.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's great for carrying it around, and you can play it in the car and play it at the cottage. It's great.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
You know, that was another thing that I wanted to ask you, because you have this beautiful home just outside of Kingston. You have a cottage near Renfrew, and you used to have Kingsmere. Mm-hmm. Do you miss Kingsmere? Yes
and no. I'll miss it in the winter because the cross-country skiing there was so good. But, you know, it wasn't my house. It's a very nice place to live and to spend time, but I didn't spend much time there. It was sleep out overnight and go into work in the morning. And in the summer, rather than sit there all day, I'd rather go to the cottage and spend my time there. So it wasn't a place where I would say I spent a lot of free time. It just didn't work that way. Mm-hmm. If I was there, it was because I had work to do in Ottawa and was doing it. Mm-hmm. Yes, you might get the afternoon out there, but rarely, because you wouldn't go out for the afternoon and back in for dinner. You stayed in the office all day instead.
Sure. Now, you're still very busy. You're still settling into this new chapter of your life. And as we've talked about, you'll continue teaching and undoubtedly traveling. Are there specific things that when you made the decision not to run, that you knew you wanted to do in so-called retirement?
Well, not specifically, no. I think what I'll spend time here, spend time at the cottage, maybe do a bit of international travel.
But you haven't always wanted to climb Mount Everest?
No.
To,
I don't like heights.
The canals of Venice or any?
No, not specifically. I mean, I'm sure places I'll think of going that I'd like to go and spend some time.
Yeah.
Because I've done a lot of official visits in these places and seen stuff that I'd like to go and spend more time looking at.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of figuring out where and when, and as I say, I'm not in a rush for it. I've got friends in England I'd like to go visit. The visits were always 1 or 2 nights on your way somewhere else before, and now I can go and spend a week there or whatever and have a visit and chat with them. So, and some of these cruises also look quite interesting, and I've never done one, but I thought a cruise in the Baltic, the Baltics would be really interesting, or Adriatic.
Absolutely.
I mean,
you can go through Asia now too, which would be interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it strikes me as quite nice, and you know, you're not going through great stormy weather in those places with high seas. It's relatively calm, and you get to spend days in some of these places. And I'd see the tourists coming in and leaving. When I was there on an official visit, you're staying in a hotel on the waterfront. You see a big boat come in, and people get off. Stockholm had that. Perfectly nice, and I think, wow, this could be fun.
So it's sailing off on the high seas.
Well, who knows? I don't know that I'll go out in the high seas. I'll stay in those smaller seas. But
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Nice to chat.
Pleasure. You too.
Nice to see you.